Pavan, as I mentioned earlier, is a marine biologist and an incredible oceans, has worked as a marine biologist and is very passionate about our world, oceans and sea life. She's going to go through what her experience is and what she does. I'll hand it over to you, Pavan.
Hello, thank you. First of all, I'm going to apologize if my screen wobbles. I'm not on my usual setup today, so bear with me. Right, I'm going to try and share this screen now. Everybody see that? Perfect, thank you. Okay, so I've been asked to just tell you a little bit about what I do, and oh, let's see if this is going to work. Oh, yay. Okay, so as a marine biologist, when I was little, I just always wanted to work with dolphins, and I just didn't know how to do it. I didn't know anybody who was doing it. I lived in a landlocked city in Africa, and I just couldn't think of how to do it. But somehow, Mars Goodbar, I managed to get out to work with dolphins, and these are pictures of some creatures that I've managed to experience myself. We've got bottlenose dolphins, which everybody will know from like the Flipper series, and probably the most common dolphins that you will see if in captivity, but hopefully not for much longer. I've also managed on the bottom left is something called a common dolphin. This one is the most abundant out in the oceans and can be seen anywhere in the world, even off the coast of England, UK. And on the right here, this is a fin whale, which is the third largest whale in the planet. And on the bottom here is a blue whale, which I've also been fortunate enough to study, well, not to study, to see once when I was out in the Atlantic. So I consider myself really lucky to be able to do these things. What I do at the moment, this is me in my job at the moment. I go to work on a boat and I study the whales and dolphins off the coast of Tenerife. So if you're ever in Tenerife, do look us up. We do tourist boats. We can take you out. You can learn what's happening with the local populations there. And just the little turtle on the left, I always like to throw in because it's only ever once I've managed to do it, and hopefully at some point in the future I'll see another turtle. But we managed to pick. There's an arrangement with the guys who study the turtles. If we're out, we get to pull the turtle up and put a tag on it, and then release it back into the water and let the turtle people know. And they can then keep tabs on that turtle, and we can hopefully try and learn a little bit more about what's happening in their lives. So today I think we've all talked about, or we're all aware about ocean currents and climate change and you know, and this whole doom and gloom of how terrible it's going to be. I just wanted to bring home a little bit about, I think sometimes, especially I find within our community, I'll talk especially to elders, and maybe not always elders, will be like, yeah, it's in the ocean and it's all the way over there, it's got nothing to do with me. So just wanted to try and bring that home a little bit. Actually, in the UK, the furthest that anyone ever is from the ocean is only about 75 miles. So that's about hour and a half, couple of hours drive, maybe. So we're not that far away. I mean, I travel longer to go and see my mom sometimes. So we've got something called ocean currents, and it's basically where the warm, salty water. No, let's get this right. Warm, less salty water is lighter, so stays up near the top of the surface of the ocean, and then the cold, more salty water is the cold currents, which are lower down in the deep sea. And they're all sort of interconnected, and the one that most people will know will be the Gulf Stream. And I just want how that affects climate change and sea temperatures rising, and why it's important as well. You get the trade winds, which blow warm water towards Mexico. Over there, the water gets heated up even more to about 30 degrees. And then this water is rushed all the way towards us here in England. It's actually the Gulf Stream is one of the fastest currents out there. It's roughly about 6 kilometers an hour that the water travels at. It's a huge amount of water in that current. Is probably about 15% more water in that single current than all the world's rivers put together. And what happens with the water when the water is traveling, if anybody's watched Finding Nemo, and you've got when the turtles are sort of swishing past and Nemo joins them when he's trying to find his friend Dory, this is the current they're on. So a lot of animals use this current to travel, to migrate. It brings animals, it brings nutrients in the sea up as well, and then it comes up towards us here in England, and then it goes further north and cools down, and then the water drops all the way back down, and the whole cycle repeats itself. But the thing with the currents is that it's not only helping animals to migrate and bringing their food and up to the surface for all the sea animals, but it also brings in a lot of heat for us on land. In fact, it brings the amount of heat that is brought towards us by this current is the same amount of heat that we would need 1 million nuclear power generators to generate. So if we didn't have this current, we would be looking at a difference of about 5 to 10 degrees in temperature. So really cold, really long winters, and really sparse Icelandic type landscapes. So when you hear people talking about the sea temperatures are rising, and that impact that's going to have on climate change, that's what it would do for us here. So how that works is because you've got the thermohaline circulation. So if the hot water is nicely hot and the cold water, there's a good difference between the hot and cold water, the current can flow really fast. But if the cold water is starting to warm up and catch up with the heat of the hot water, the speed of that circulation slows down. Some scientists think it might even stop. So if that slows down and it's moving really slowly, that it's not going to mix up all the water. It's not going to mix up the air. It's not going to bring up the heat to us. So I don't know about you guys, but I am a summer person. I really don't like the idea of having long, colder winters. So that's just when people talk about climate change and ocean warm up, this is how it affects us here on land. Okay, after all that, I'd like you all to take a deep breath in. That breath came from the trees. Ellen will be happy to share that's come from the forest. Okay, and now another breath in, please. That second breath came from the ocean. So the oceans are actually responsible for 50% of cleaning up of our air. And I think a lot of times we get the trees and get a lot of publicity for growing trees, planting trees, and how good they are for the climate, but the ocean is just as important. We can sequester up to 50% of the carbon dioxide and the greenhouse gases in the ocean through all the seagrasses. When you get large sea mammals die and they sink to the earth, to the bottom, the sea floor, ocean floor, they take all that carbon back down with them. So it does help to try and mitigate carbon gases on climate change as well. Right, so plastics, these circles here are all garbage patches in the ocean. These two in the middle actually come together and form one big garbage patch called the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. So all the plastics that we use, and I know we all hear a lot about, there's a lot of campaigns now for recycling, reducing, and they're all really good. This Great Pacific Garbage Patch is so big that some people think it's the same size as 3 UKs put together. Some scientists think it's as big as 2 Americas put together. The reason we don't really know how big it is because it doesn't look like this. Some of it looks like this. In fact, a lot of it looks like this. But the large majority of it looks like this. These are all fragments that have been taken out of a turtle's stomach. So all the plastic that has ever been produced is still here. And it just gets smaller and smaller and smaller, but we can never ever get rid of it. And the problem is that animals ingest it and they can't digest it, so they end up unfortunately end up dying. The other problem is we're all eating it as well. Regardless of whether you eat seafood or not, any plastic that goes in the ocean goes into you through our waterways, through our agriculture, through seafood. And what a lot of people don't realize is that we are all eating one credit card of plastic every week. And I just found that out a few days ago, actually. So I had to quickly put it in here for today. And it's so new that we don't know what impact it's having on our lives. It could affect our fertility, it could affect our immunity, longevity, so many things. But the plastic issue is actually really important and something that we really need to consider and try and reduce. Something else that we all do, and we might not relate to plastics pollution, is doing our laundry. So every time we do laundry, the garments break down and you get these little things called microfibers, which are between like 5 and 7 millimeters in size. They're so tiny that the filtration plants for all the water filtration, they're not designed to be able to filter that out. So eventually all those microfibers end up in the environment. Scientists have done research and found that synthetic natural fibers release around 80% fewer fibers than acrylic or polyester or any sort of polyester synthetic blends that you have. Using fabric conditioner increases the release of of fibers. So there are things that you can do with your laundry. There are bags that you can get to put your clothes in before you put them in the washing machine, or you can add additional filters to your washing machine, but those are a bit more expensive. Some of the easiest things to do, I think in the UK, most of our washing machines are front loading, and these are 7 times less likely to shed fibers than the top loading ones. You can reduce the rotation of the speed when you're doing your laundry. You can wash at a cooler temperature. This is good also for heating water uses a lot of energy, so the cooler the water, that's helpful as well. And use less detergent, or definitely opt for one without bleach. And I think this is just something that we all do every day and probably don't think about it. It's something that we can hopefully implement in our lives to help make a change. Other ways that we can try and do is buy less clothes, or buy as much natural as possible. Wash less, wash cooler, reduce plastics, recycle, take our rubbish home with us. It says beach rubbish, but really anywhere we are, you should really take our rubbish home with you, or at least put it properly in a bin. But the thing with public bins to be careful about is make sure your rubbish is filled properly, because sometimes the wind will blow and it will just blow out, and then you'll have the birds trying to eat it, or the squirrels trying to pick it up. We're coming up to warmer weather now, so hopefully you will all be heading to the beach to enjoy that. Do a 2-minute beach clean. Just pick up, as you're walking back to the car, just pick up any rubbish you see and chuck it in the bin. These are other ways you can get involved. Contact your local MP. These things really do make a difference. And these are a few websites of people doing different things that you can get involved in. You can sign up to their newsletters or follow them on social media, and they all have lots of different ways that you can get involved to help clean up the environment. I thought the break was going to be before us, so I was going to quickly put in my email address, but if you just have any questions, you can always get in touch with me through Eco-Sikh. I'm sure they'll be happy to forward anything.